Hi, I'm Amy, thank you for tuning in. I've had a bit of a strange start to the year with my reading because I started the year really well and read absolutely loads of books in the first couple of weeks of January. And for a couple of reasons, mostly linked to writing, it dropped off as the month went on. I ended up finishing writing one book and starting writing another, and that consumed a lot of my attention, so I didn't end up reading quite as much as it seemed like I was going to at the start of the month, but I'm still pleased with the amount of books I read. I didn't have a super busy month event-wise, but I did interview two great authors, Naomi Gibson and William Ritter, so I will link in the description to those interviews if you're interested. I also got to go to Naomi Gibson and Cynthia Murphy's book launch in real life. It's been a while because of COVID and having a young child. I haven't been able to see many authors talk about their books and have a chat with them afterwards, so that was really lovely. I'm going to try and do more of that this year. I've done a bit of signing in January. I had a nice surprise at my bookshop. My local in Doncaster, when I went in, they'd ordered a big stack of books and they put a table by the counter of my books. So there's lots of signed copies there for anybody who's interested. And also I did some signing in some Manchester bookshops when I was there for Cynthia and Naomi's event. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I did my first YA book club. Had a great time. I've learned a lot of things. Going forward, there's a few things that I will tweak, but overall I think it went really well. I absolutely loved chatting to people about our January pick, Frozen Charlotte, and we did a live which I really enjoyed at the beginning of February. I'll link to that in the description. I just want to say thanks again to the people who appeared on screen in that. I'll link to their channels because they are all brilliant content creators who are into horror. And I had a great time chatting about the book and chatting to people in the comments as well. So to the books that I read now in January. First up, people who've been following me for a while will know that I've been trying to read all of Charlene Harris's books. So I read a couple more Aurora Teagarden books, Last Seen Alive, which is actually one of my favourites so far, I think, because it is based on a movie set. Aurora was involved in some events early on in the books that end up being made into a movie, starring somebody else, not her. So they come to her, the film crews come to her hometown to film, and I really like the dynamic of that. I like it when an author throws in a kind of a different plot element that just reinvigorates things, and I enjoyed the way the relationships developed in this book. Next I read Poppy Done to Death, another Aurora book, and this one had a really good mystery in it, and they all tend to have some kind of central mystery. Usually somebody around Aurora dies, and this one had a good mystery that I enjoyed trying to unpick. Next, I finished in January, even though it's a Christmas book, Merry Christmas to You by Jenny Jennings. She's also known as Jenny Bayliss on some of her other books. This was the perfect festive read. It was so romantic. I loved the relationships, not just the romantic ones, but the friendship relationships too. And it was one of those books that kind of was bittersweet. Some of the characters were going through really difficult things, and it highlighted the fact that Christmas isn't always great for everyone, and some families have a really tough time. But it balanced all those elements beautifully to create a really uplifting book with characters that I loved, and you got to delve into different characters, third person perspectives I think it was, through the book, and the characters all had interesting quirky traits, so I really enjoyed Jenny's writing. I'm definitely going to pick up more books by her. I've read her middle grade book, which I think was called Malice in Underland, that I really enjoyed, so I'm hoping to read more of her YA stuff as well. Next, I read The Luminaries, and thank goodness for this book. It has reminded me how much I have loved fantasy in the past. I've had a weird relationship with fantasy recently where I've just not read that many fantasy books, and the ones that I have, I've enjoyed, but I haven't absolutely loved. And this is a proof copy. The finished copy is gorgeous as well. And this one by Susan Dennard, I absolutely adored. It is set in a remote town where luminaries are these guardians that protect people in the world from creatures that can come through, sort of what reminded me of like a Hellmouth in Buffy, a point where creatures are able to roam. And I just loved the way the characters were crafted in this. The world building was amazing. The plot kept me really engaged, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a series because it set up a few interesting elements that I'm looking forward to seeing how they unravel. And also I think I'm going to try and check out Susan Dennard's other fantasies. I think she wrote the Truth Witch series before this and some others. So it's great to find a new author that not only has reminded me that I love fantasy, but that I can go back and read all of her back catalogue as well. Lost Village is the next book that I read. This one took me a couple of months. It wasn't quite what I expected. It's about a group of filmmakers who go to a remote place in, let me think, I'm trying to find out what country it is. Can't actually remember. That's not a good sign, is it? It was in a European country, certainly, and very cold, cut off from society, and mysteriously all the people who lived in this village disappeared. And this group of filmmakers go to find out what happened. And I don't know what I was expecting. I won't give it away too much, but I think if you ever go into a book and you have a really clear idea of how the plot is going to unravel, and it doesn't quite go in that direction, I sometimes end up not feeling quite as invested as I could have done. And I know that's my fault. That's not the author's fault that she didn't write the book I wanted to read, but just based on the blurb, I think I was expecting something slightly different. So I did enjoy it. It was very well crafted. The author is excellent at building atmosphere, so I definitely wouldn't write this one off, but it just wasn't quite what I was looking for, I don't think. So definitely a good book, but maybe just for me at a different time, or for somebody else, definitely. Another book that I was disappointed by a little bit was No Longer Human by Junji Ito. I read this at Spoopy Hall. I will link to her channel in the description. And I've adored every one of Junji Ito's books to differing extents. Some of them, like Uzumaki, I absolutely love and I will read again. I've really enjoyed the others. This one I'd say I quite enjoyed in places. There was some content that I wasn't a big fan of. It's my own fault. I didn't look into content warnings. There was some stuff that I'd definitely check the content warnings, because it kind of covers a lot of things in this. I think the main problem I had with it is it's meant to be based on somebody else's autobiography, so it wasn't Junji Ito's story. And it was kind of the story of a person who I found quite unpleasant, really, who behaved badly, ended up getting quite a lot of people hurt. So I just think because I couldn't connect with any of the characters, and in places it was repetitive, that you were just seeing him repeating these same behaviour patterns, that I didn't love it. I'd say if you're trying to read all Junji Ito books, as I am, I wouldn't write it off, but just be warned, check the content, and I've seen quite a few people say this isn't their favourite, so just bear that in mind. Next up we have Frozen Charlotte, the first YA book club pick. I absolutely adore this book. I read it when it came out a few years ago, so I couldn't remember much about it apart from creepy dolls, and I really liked it. So it was good to read it again, because I felt like it didn't spoil the experience that I'd read it before. There were loads of plot elements that I'd forgotten. And I just think Alex Bell is amazing at crafting really creepy, often using remote locations, really creepy atmosphere and environments. I love the fact that her characters, some are ambiguous, some are downright unlikable, and some are really likeable. It ends up being sort of a broad mixture in her cast of characters. And it was great the way she used this Frozen Charlotte legend and wove it in with these little Frozen Charlotte dolls that are very spooky, very dangerous. Don't buy a Frozen Charlotte doll unless you're prepared for the consequences. I just loved it, and the experience of reading with other people as part of the book club made it really fun. I liked reading people's theories and thoughts on different things. Like some things people found disturbing, that it made me reflect and think, oh well, you know, obviously I had a different experience of that. Some things I found really disturbing that didn't seem to bother other people, so very, very interesting to read a book together. Another book I buddy read was the first book in the Morganville Vampire series. I'll show you the beautiful cover of that. I really like the foil on these. I ended up rebuying that series because I'd read a few of them years and years ago. I wanted to buy and read the whole series, and it turned out that my friends Lizzie and Hannah wanted to read them as well. So I think it was a reread for Lizzie, and I can't remember if Hannah was rereading or if it was for the first time. But we enjoyed it. It was interesting how some of the plot elements, I think, we saw differently, and some of the characters we saw a bit differently being a bit older reading it, but I did love it, and I think I'm going to try and read the rest of the books hopefully this year. So that is it for the books I read this month. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of them and what you thought. Let me know if you joined in with the Frozen Charlotte YA book club, and if you enjoyed that book. And if you've got any more suggestions for the YA book club as well, in terms of books you'd like to read or genres you'd like to cover, please let me know, because sometimes I'll be choosing the book and sometimes I'll be leaving it open to the club members to decide. So it's great to get as much input as I can from other people and as many recommendations as I can. As always, thank you so much for watching. Likes and subscribes are really appreciated, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Booktuber.